Hi there folks, it's been a while. You can probably see by the amount of hair I'm sprouting. I have been away for a while, I'm looking for work, but I keep ending up on social media, so I found a way of productively procrastinating using some expanding polystyrene that I picked up. I started carving little figures and I wasn't sure what these little items would be for, but I did consider using them as an aid to help me illustrate art photography, which is something I also do. And it seems to me that they catch the light in a very specific way because the material is white and semi-translucent. So I can use it to illustrate different ways of lighting an object, using images for narrative effect, as in storyboards. And these are a quick way of sketching a sculpture that doesn't cost a lot because the materials themselves are free and are quite easy to work with. All you need is a sharp X-Acto knife, and you can cut out figures like these, which help me to illustrate how one might light motor vehicle pictures, or what the effects of reflected light are on an object depending on the angle to the reflected light and the key light. Also how to show form and how to bring an object into the foreground. What really caught my eye was this little image here. So we are currently in raw therapy. It is a free Lightroom clone that allows me to process my raw photographs. Raw photographs store a lot more information than you see on the image, but raw therapy translates them into RGB values so that they can display on your monitor. Here I have control over the exposure. But what I really want to do here is I want to keep the exposure down and boost the saturation so that I can show you what I saw in this image. This was taken very close to sunset, so the light coming in from the window had an orange tint, and the inside of the room, in comparison, was quite blue. Now, if you know anything about how the eye works, you will realize that when you're in a very blue environment, colors that are closer to neutral gray will start to appear orange, and I can illustrate it with this little tool here. Raw therapy has a light probe that I can use to show the values, relative values in red, green, and blue channels. So if we look at this area on the nose, even though it appears to be slightly orange, it's a warmer tone, the values are very balanced. It's 55, around 55% red, 55 green, 55 blue. There's slightly more blue, but it still appears to be a warmer passage. If we look at the forehead, which is in shadow, we get more blue than red or green. If we look at this top surface of this block that is actually casting a shadow on the lower face, we can see that there's more red and green than blue, giving it a yellow tint. On the side of the block, though, there's very little red, slightly more green, and 50% blue. And the funny thing is, there's a brown surface in front here which starts to look yellow. The light that's cast in the shadow is more of a violet hue. And this is not what we're seeing. I've boosted the saturation a lot so that we can see relatively how warm or cool the colors are. But I thought it might be useful to you to realize where the rule comes from that says you should put in warm highlights and cold shadows, or the inverse, which you can see in this image here, where the light is cool and the reflected light coming from my hand is warm. You can see how well that defines the form of the object. So even though you may not have a situation where the light is that different, you can still use what some people refer to as a rule, using warmer highlights and cool shadows, or cooler highlights and warmer shadows, in order to illustrate the form and make your images pop